Good morning, everyone, and welcome. We appreciate your taking the time to learn how to transition a traditional school to a deeper learning model. My name is Beth Frost Johnson, and I'm the moderator for today's webinar, which is sponsored by Foundry Deeper Learning Solutions. Just a few housekeeping items about the webinar. Our educational webinar will last 45 minutes, followed by 15 minutes of Q&A. If you have a question during the webinar, click on the chat section in the gray tool panel, type your question in the box at the bottom right, and select Send to Panelists and Organizers from the drop-down and click Submit. This webinar is being recorded so you can share it with others and will be placed on our website. We'll send you an email as soon as it's posted. If you're not seeing the slides on your full screen, just go up to the full screen icon on your desktop on the upper right corner. If you're having any technological problems during the webinar, please describe it in the chat window. Select Send to Organizers, and our associate Ellen will be glad to assist you. Our speakers, we're very proud to have Camille Mortimer and Opal Ehalt as our speakers today. Camille serves as Foundry's Chief Learning Officer. She has been a pioneer and leader in learner-centered and project-based learning, as well as administrative leadership and organizational and professional development. She founded and served as head learner of a project-based learning public charter school in Milwaukee, and has also served as superintendent and K-8 principal over 18 years. Camille has extensive experience in elementary, middle school, high school, and college teaching. In her role as Foundry's Chief Learning Officer, Camille focuses on integrating effective deeper learning research and practice into the Foundry platform and innovating schools, building powerful partnerships to enhance teacher and student performance, implementing PBL and Project Foundry in complex school and district contexts. Camille has a doctorate in educational policy and leadership and a master's degree in administration and supervision. Opal is a curriculum and instruction specialist for Minneapolis Public Schools, where Foundry is used to manage deeper learning. Opal has taught and served as an instructional coach at the secondary level for 19 years. She has pioneered both project-based learning and online blended learning in MPS, focusing as a curriculum and instruction leader for Minneapolis's 9 alternative schools. She has been integral to the work of transformational change for students and teachers in MPS, as well as a catalyst for continued improvement in the areas of personalized learning, integrating PBL and blended learning. She actively facilitates professional development to better equip teachers to meet the needs of diverse learners in innovative learning environments. She has a master's degree in curriculum and instruction, a 512 ELA teaching license, as well as a K-12 principal license. Camille and Opal, it's all yours.
Thanks, Beth. This is Camille, and greetings, everyone. I'm in Milwaukee. You're here from all over the country, and Opal is in Minneapolis. So, hey, Opal.
Hi.
I'm excited about our conversation today, and I'm really happy to have the opportunity to work with you again. Opal's doing a really exciting work in Minneapolis Public Schools that Foundry's really been honored to be part of for a good number of years now. And I know all of you who are here as participants are really going to value from hearing about the story of transformation that Opal's leading in MPS.
Thanks, Camille. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. I always really enjoy talking about the work that we're doing in Minneapolis. And also, likewise, I learn something from you every time we chat. And I'm really glad that you invited me to be a part of this webinar, How to Transform Traditional Schools to Project-Based, Personalized, Deeper Learning. Deeper learning is a complex term, so I'm kind of wondering, Camille, if you want to define deeper learning for everyone so that we can be on the same starting point.
Yep, good idea, Opal. So deeper learning's an umbrella term, if you will, of what are the needed skills and knowledge for 21st century work and civic life, and really life as a whole. You see on your screen the 6 deeper learning competencies, and these have been described maybe most articulately by the Hewlett Foundation. You can find them online. And you'll see there 21st century skills, not surprisingly. And leading off with mastering core academic content. The ability to know what's important within our culture is really essential. But notice numbers 4 and 5 of learning how to learn and developing academic mindsets. This whole piece of how do learners know who they are and what capacities do they have and do they need to be able to be excellent learners and lifelong learners. And then to develop the academic mindsets. These are really learning mindsets about who they are in the learning community and what they can contribute, where they can find new partners, how they can have purpose and contribute to the learning conversation. So these are the deeper learning competencies that we mean when we're talking about this today. And if we look at that in pictures, these are deeper learning schools and students that some of them I've worked with over time. There's Washington State's represented here, and Colorado, Wisconsin, of course, is here, Vermont, and the schools that you're looking at have stepped into personalized learning. Many of them project-based learning. Some are blended and project-based. There's some that focus deeply on place-based learning, STEM and STEAM, all kinds of deeper learning approaches that have inquiry at their base. And they're deeply interdisciplinary and learner-centered in their work. They really highly value these things. So let's look at how effective this deeper learning stuff is. So here's some of the research about this, from higher graduation rates from high school to higher attendance at college. And the research is pretty clear that deeper learning graduates persist more effectively at college as well. Test scores are higher, and there's a deep understanding and experiential knowledge about collaborative skills and self-efficacy. Those of you that are thinking about student agency, this really is the research base related to student agency. We'll also see much higher motivation in students that take part in deeper learning and that they engage academically at a much higher level, which of course takes us right back to the top of why they have higher test scores and get onto college and are doing well there.
Yeah, these outcomes are really why we began our work in Minneapolis, and then seeing the outcomes, unroll is really why we continue to support, and that's what drives the work for deeper learning.
So let's take a look at our agenda then. We want to look at 4 areas today. How ready are you? And what does it really look like to be ready? And then pathways. What are the most effective pathways to deeper learning? And what approaches might be right for you? And then we want to look at what are the most powerful levers that you can use to accelerate the process of this work. Why not use the most powerful levers, right? And then, of course, this last important question of empowering teachers. How are they going to be ready and confident?
All right, let's dive in.
Okay, so what is deeper learning and how ready are you? And where do we start? So Opal, tell us about deeper learning transformation at MPS. What's the MPS vision? And I'm really interested in you talking about what motivated MPS toward deeper learning, and how did you really decide you were ready? What got you going?
That's a great question. Well, my journey into deeper learning began around 10 years ago. I was working at an alternative school for teen parents. I was the instructional coach there. And the traditional methods of learning just are not working with our unique students. A lot of them are older. They had some gaps behind in school, and then having a child, they're in and out of school, having their baby and illness and parenting needs. And so we had begun implementing some deeper learning in pockets around the school. And we just really knew that we needed to make some transformations so that all of our students could experience success. And we were really lucky to have an expert in deeper learning come on board and really help us develop a plan. We visited other schools that had similar challenges that were doing project-based learning. And when our teachers saw project-based learning in action, that was really powerful. And then because we were doing deeper learning in pockets, we were seeing success in those little pockets. And so that motivated us to move forward. And then knowing that the deeper learning strategies with project-based learning and blended online, it fit our vision for re-engaging our students. We really wanted to prepare them for college and closing that graduation gap. So it fit with that vision. And then with a consultant, we had a well-developed plan. It took a lot of courage to begin the work. And I would say it was really important that we had a strong team together to really make it happen and step out in faith. And through that journey, we saw a lot of success at that school, and it continues to breed success today. And it's a really powerful, beautiful model. And so working in Minneapolis public schools with some innovative leadership, they saw that success and really supported it and decided that they wanted to implement and support deeper learning strategies in all of our alternative schools. So we have 8 other schools that are now really being fully supported for deeper learning strategies. They also had been doing different aspects of deeper learning all along, but now we've strategically made it possible for them to do that across the board and design full deeper learning models. So pictures are worth 1,000 words. I want to talk really briefly about 2 of my schools that are represented in these pictures. The one on the left is a smaller school. It's an indigenous school, and they are in this picture painting a mural on the side of their school that faces a walking path to our light rail system. And this was a summer project. And the really cool thing about this, we see kids painting, and they are earning art credit through painting, but there's all these other different content that's woven into it. So they did language arts, and they did math skills through this. There was some phy-ed and health skills that they learned through it. And then also they learned a lot about their native culture, and then communication skills, because they presented and had to work alongside some community members to make that happen. And then the picture on the right is another school that has a lot of overage students that are working and really caretaking and providing for their families. And this school does project-based learning, and they connect it to a lot of different career pathways. So students can experience what it's like to develop those career skills. And this is also really cool too, because they align that to content standards. So even though in this picture, this student is doing welding with one of our community partners, they're also earning art and chemistry and some physics credit. And I know for sure that they'll integrate some language arts and communication skills through that. So we've really developed these dynamic environments where students can understand that core content and then use that to problem solve, create, collaborate, and be self-reflective. And then providing these opportunities helps our students learn in a way that honors who they are, really. And our hope, and it really, you can see this happen, it ignites in them a passion for learning, and they impact their communities in ways I think they thought they never could. And that creates in them a sense of belonging and hope.
You know, Opal, you really make me think about the many jobs that we have that go unfilled. Well, welding's a great example here in Wisconsin. And also the many young people who want to work, but they don't yet have a passion for work or know what path they want to take. And I'm just struck by what important work this is. It's just really, really powerful work. So
absolutely.
Yeah, so our participants are about this as well. Let's take a look at the current reality in some of their schools. We had a number of you who filled out the survey that we sent you about readiness. You'll notice here that our attendees are primarily principals and superintendents, about 70%. Are from those leadership ranks. So welcome all of you. We're excited about transformation with you. And then I've pulled some other data from here. About 75% of you said that you had begun these or had firmly established these practices around learner-centered work and student agency inquiry. And even job-embedded professional learning personalized for teachers. So I'm excited that that much is going on for you in your schools and districts. Over half of you said that you'd begun work in 21st century learning skills implementation and standards and competency proficiency work, which is really central to this deeper learning work. So you go. And then these two statistics are really important, that there really is senior leadership on board in the districts who are with us today and schools around innovative instruction. And that their decision-making teams have both administrators and teachers involved. So these aren't just top-down approaches that are being taken. The complexity of them really require a lot of stakeholders at the table, all of the stakeholders at the table. And then this last one I wanted to point out here, this 20% number. Only 20% of you said you have connections with already transforming schools. And as you heard Opal say, this is one of the most powerful things that they did, was to get connected with other schools doing this work. So here's a stretch area for everybody. We looked at the structures, and we're going to talk about structures today. These are the kinds of structures we're looking at. And what's really interesting about this data picture is that of everyone who's here, lots of the data was really strong and on the longest bars here. But if we look at the shortest bars, you know, they're around student led conferences or block scheduling or internships and partnerships. And it's really interesting that that's the case, because these happen to be really related to the most powerful structural changes you can make. Things around authentic audience and time and how we use it, real world strategies out in the real world, and mentorship, the power of experts and guides along the way. So you'll want to be listening for those things today as we go through this. And then just a couple more things that I thought was interesting to look at. I've split the data into two groups. This is a group of beginning and implementing practices that you all reported on. And what we saw is that blessedly people are moving away from textbooks and into interdisciplinary learning with teacher-led projects and student-led projects and blended learning. So this made great sense, and I was really excited to see how far people are on standards and competency and on performance-based assessment. And then we begin to start dropping off here into authentic learning evidence, so evidence of learning. But I thought this was a really positive picture. The blue bars are quite low here, not yet on the radar. So that's a good thing. When we look at the next slide of data, you'll see this is where the blue bars are reaching up, and the beginning to implement is powerful here too, whereas established practice is much, much lower. And look what these things are: portfolios of learning and learner profiles and personal learning plans, proficiency-based grading, and then really stretches for folks, shared teacher planning time, protocols for quality around work and planning, learning plans and student work. And then right here, the really yummiest of all of these, regular field studies. So I thought these were interesting, and they really point to areas for growth that make good sense. And they really relate to some of the powerful levers to make this work. So there's the data for you, and I wanted to go here to take a look at this. So when school leaders and teachers come to us at Foundry, you know, they're looking for a digital platform to support deeper learning. And what we've learned over time is that it's really important for us to explore with schools where they are on their journey. This is our Foundry transformation curriculum from vision through these 4 phases to deeper learning. Most schools, when they approach us, come to us really at this place right here. They want to do teacher learning plans to customize a platform and really dive in to this work of the teacher using software to guide student transformation. What we have found is really important to do is to kind of do a backward reflection with schools back into discovering where are they in readiness and what does their action plan look like? You know, where are they on leadership? And you know, where are they with professional depth and stakeholders being on board and having the resources that they need? What about the vision and the values of the organization? And then what kind of cultural change work has gone on? And these are some of the areas that we think are really important. And then what we're going to talk about today in more depth is structures that are really essential to make these kinds of changes, like block scheduling and advisory and showcases or exhibitions of learning, student-led conferences. And then we ask teachers and principals and superintendents who come to us to look at design. So in implementing this, what are the things that need to be done? What are the outcomes you're looking for? How does instruction need to change? And what does assessment have to do with the whole thing? So this is the work that needs to be done. And what we've discovered is a lot of our schools tell us, oh, we thought we were here, but we see we've got a foot over here and another one here, and we have work to do. So we recognize that's the case. We work with schools on this and even use our platform to help teachers to do this work. I'm delighted to see how far many of you are in terms of embedding these practices. So you have lots to be proud of. Let's take a look at how to choose what might be next in your transformation. You know, what are the things to consider out of all of this? What might you consider and how would you choose? So let's look at the deeper learning pathways, things like personalizing and PBL, place-based learning and problem-based, or titles like work-based and STEM and STEAM and Maker and Fab Labs and on and on and on, right? So how do you choose? Opal, you have 9 schools that you're working with. What's going on? How did your schools choose?
Yeah, that's a really important consideration because with all of the different pedagogical models, one size doesn't fit all. And so really you have to think about what is your underlying or your driving purpose? What is your vision? What are you trying to solve? What problems are you trying to solve? And then choosing pathways that really fit that. And so I have a couple examples. The first one is the Teen Parent Program that I first began this journey with, where the traditional setting wasn't working for our students. They miss portions of the year when they have a child and they're out ill, and a lot of them are caretaking. So there's need for programming that fits that, and also preparing them for college and career because they're very motivated to support their children. So the project-based learning model was one that we really gravitated towards because it allowed teachers and students to together design projects around topics that are really of high interest to them, that are connected to careers that they're interested in. And then also a lot of the projects that they develop revolve around parenting and their children, things that they're very interested in and it really hooks them into learning. But the project-based model is amazing because when the students leave for any period of time, the projects can go with them, or if that's not the case, they can't go with them. When the student comes back, the project's right there. So in the traditional model, a student leaves for 3 weeks and they come back and you're on a whole different chapter. But here in project-based learning, they can pick up right where they left off. And then the other model that we gravitated to was the blended online model for the same reason. They can come and go and take it with them. And I remember sitting late at night, looking through my online classes and seeing students that were online at night because they're up with their children. And so that integrating that blended online was a really seamless fit for us. So the students can work on their classwork anytime, anywhere. And then another one of my schools that I'll talk about, there's a picture on the next slide, is one of our First Nations schools. We have a few of those in Minneapolis that are really beautiful, but we know that the education system has tragically failed our First Nation youth. And there is a real strong need to construct programming for where Indigenous culture is really the basis for all of their academic activities. And so they also really gravitated towards place-based learning, experiential learning, project-based learning, and they designed practices that embody these indigenous cultural practices and language. They're learning outdoors and in the community. And in that top picture, you see a student building a canoe by hand. And I have to tell a real quick story. Our lead decided to do this project with the students and brought them out to the warehouse, and they were all on their cell phones. And within 5 minutes into this activity, they had all put their cell phones away. And he said, for the whole time period of building this canoe, students were very engaged. And there was a lot of complex math that went into this, where it was really relevant to the work that they were doing. So it's a great example of how the model fit that need and the problem that we're trying to solve. And then another school I'll talk about is one of our large settings. The majority of the students here are African American students who have been disengaged in the traditional setting as well. Disengaged and disempowered, I have to add. This school in particular has an amazing theater attached to the school, and their purpose is arts and technology integration. And they've have the students come with a big gap in credits towards graduation. So they designed programming that's interdisciplinary, so students can get multiple credits and earn multiple content areas towards graduation and meeting their goals. And then it's also project-based, and that is really deeply connected to the community resources that they have. They have guest artists that come in all the time and work with the projects. And then all of their exhibitions pretty much are on stage. And so the students are given a place to have their voices heard and showcased, and one that they can advocate for social justice. And I remember one of the showcases I brought in one of our district special ed leads who knew some of the students that were performing that day, and she was amazed because students that really are marginalized and had some big skill gaps had researched, written a monologue, memorized it, and was performing on stage very vibrantly, and she was just taken aback. So in choosing the pathways, I believe that it really has to center around that you're driving why. What is it that drives your program? What is your vision? And then what problems are you trying to solve? So really is a match. And then you're not going to get it 100% right that first time. It's just really working through and making those pathways match that why. What is it that you're doing? And that's what's going to make the big difference for your program.
Thanks, Opal. Lucky kids. When Opal and I were preparing for today, we tripped into kind of a shared appreciation for the work of Simon Sinek. Many of you may know his work. He's an organizational consultant and an author. He has a great video called How Great Leaders Inspire Action. And so all of you great leaders who haven't seen this, then you're not part of the 41.5 million people who have. And that's just online. I don't know how many people Simon shared it with, but we'll send you the link in case you haven't seen it. But let's take a look at one of the things that comes from that, and that's the golden circle. So Sinek says that every organization on the planet, including all of our schools, know what they do, right? That's pretty easy. Kids come every day, we teach, they go home, right? And sometimes they learn. And how we do it, we've got some good focus on and things that we know we should do. The hows are part of our regular planning and daily workflow. But this question of why, Sinek says that very few organizations really know why they do what they do. And so it's really, really about your purpose, your cause, your beliefs. That's why we do what we do. And it is really the very reason that our organizations exist. So we asked this question to you in the readiness survey, and we thought we'd share your answers with you because a lot of you have obviously been thinking about your why.
Yeah, when I looked through the survey, it was so fun to read all of the whys. And so a few that really stood out to me was this equitable access for all students, for the students to reach their full potential. We imagine a better world and work towards realizing it. And a couple other really wonderful ones is understanding how young people are working. Students become community change makers. And this why here really is what drives the work. And it's really exciting when you think about it, how to match those pathways and put the structures in place to fit this and to help you meet your why.
Mm-hmm. So which is the best choice, the best pathway, with PBL or STEM or place-based or personalizing or expeditionary learning or whatever the path? Really, the answer to that lies locally. It lies with you. And what are your local needs, and what are your shared beliefs? Why do you do what you do? So our best advice to you is to lean into those beliefs, lean into your why. And then what do your beliefs, your why, what's it demand of you? So begin there. If you haven't done that work, then that's your homework, or it's your next PD day with your team. Let's look now at the powerful levers that can help move this work forward. How will you manage change, and what are the most powerful change levers that are going to accelerate this? And we're going to look at structures and practices to move this forward. So you have a vision, and you've chosen a path for deeper learning. You know where you want to go, and it's going to take skills to build that, and it's going to take the right incentives and adequate resources, and of course the quality action plan. So maybe it's rigorous PBL or personalized, whatever that change is you desire. But what if your vision's unclear? What's likely to happen? And yeah, confusion. And what if you have a skills deficit? Is this right? Yeah, it is for me. If I'm not ready, I feel anxious. And if there aren't enough incentives, we're likely to see really gradual change. And we all know if there are inadequate resources, we feel frustrated. So, and I think perhaps this little one at the bottom here about a poor plan has created an awful lot of false starts, especially in this world of deeper learning. So this managing complex change, clearly there's a potential for your path to be really bumpy and winding and long. Do you find yourself on there? Is there an area that is your concern, the thing that you should go after first? Please remember that if you have questions for Opal or for me, please send them in as a question in our chat box. We'll be happy to answer them, and maybe it's around one of these managing complex change shortfalls. Let's look at this in a real world example. So we're going to take a look here at the Wild Horse Project. It's from a tribal school in Washington State, and it involves students and teachers and tribal leaders. There's university professors and business partners. And most awesomely, there are 15,000 wild horses eating the tribe out of house and home. So this has all the components for a really great place-based learning experience, right? The project purpose is to find alternatives to this horse population other than capture, tame, and selling the horses or killing them, which are the solutions that are being used now. So they're researching how to control destruction of sacred plants and crops by creating protected areas. The students came to this project kind of curiously, and they brought a lot of gifts. And of course, like any good project, some interesting challenges. On the plus side was their knowledge and love for the land and the desire to know their history and to build their tribal future. But let's take a look at the model of complex change to analyze their situation and see what stood in their way of a successful deeper learning experience. Their vision was really clear. Unclear vision wasn't a problem. And they, with their partners, built a really strong plan, the one down on the bottom. And so that wasn't a problem. And they actually generated adequate resources through those partners as well. The ability to help the tribe solve a serious problem and the elder agreement enthusiasm, it really provided powerful incentives for these young people. So what really happened is that the roadblock they faced was skills, their skills deficit. They needed the knowledge of drone and GPS technology and math and statistics. They needed collaboration skills that were really, really important to this work with so many others. And writing was a major roadblock. Letters and reports for the tribe, the university, the community was a really big stretch. And thus, the teachers and the students, they were really anxious about this. And they almost didn't start because of that anxiety. But what they did, what they strategized around, was to add a section to their action plan about skills learning. So they found experts and mentors, and this gave them the guidance they needed. So that drove them from these inadequate skills into skills growth. And that allowed them, as they grew, to become more competent, right? They built these new competencies, and their mentors not only helped them do that, but encouraged them, which built their confidence. And actually, the students really demonstrated that they became experts and leaders in technology and in higher level math they were able to use. And astonishingly, they practiced and rewrote drafts, well, like never before. And so taking a look at that, this work required significant in-class and in the field work, and it resulted in the ability for them to contribute to the tribe. The evening of their exhibition of learning is up here, and tribal leaders came, and there was really great joy, and these young people, their leaders said they had never seen them this proud. So this has been a really powerful project, and they really used managing complex change to their benefit. So let's look at the powerful levers that can be pulled into place to make this go faster, like these young people and their partners and mentors did. So structures that are real game changers. We're going to take a look at advisory, exhibitions of learning, and student-led conferences, and practices for teaching and learning in the world of relational inquiry-based learning, like evidence of learning, critique, and feedback, and relationships. And I want to point right here to the reality that these practices all live in the space of these structures. So if you think about advisory, it's a deeply relational activity. And evidence of learning is exactly what students bring to exhibitions and to student-led conferences. Their ability to have that evidence of learning at high quality is based upon critique from teachers and mentors and the feedback they give and peer feedback. So these are deeply related levers, these structures and practices. So Opal, what's your experience of all this in MPS?
Yeah, I'm really happy that you pointed out that relationship between the practices and the structures. When we first start our work, we heard about projects like that horse project, and it's really intimidating to begin, to even know where to begin for teachers, and there's a lot of anxiety there. So if you're strategic in putting those structures in place, it helps that the flow work a lot better. So two structures that I want to share today about is advisory and the exhibition of learning. And because I work with 9 schools, these do look different at all of the schools, really. In our advisory model, some of the programs have really extended advisory time periods. So they've really considered, actually all of them have really considered their scheduling as a part of this advisory. But in the advisory model, you really have the staff member who acts as an advisor to a group of students. In ours, the advisories meet every single day, and they really build this deep and trusting relationship. And then that advisor is coaching that student through the project process. Oftentimes that advisor is the one that works with a student in developing that personalized learning plan, and then coaches them through that all along the way of that project process in collaboration with content teachers. But really the advisor is the one that even prepares the students for presentation or the roadblocks that they might have along the way through that project. So really becoming that student's best advocate and spending considerable time with them and developing that deep relationship with the students, and meeting with them every single day is really important. And then not only the teacher and the student in the advisory, but the advisory usually consists of a small group of students, and they become this support network for each other, and become really that lifelong network for the students. But that group and that small community is so important. And then the other thing I want to talk about is the exhibition of learning. A really key component to deeper learning is having students present and demonstrate their learning in a public way. And that does look different in different schools and with students too. But in the first school I worked with, we called these project fairs, and we did one every single quarter. We did a project fair, and our students were all required to attend, and they were all encouraged to present. And we invite families, community members, every single person at the district office we invited in. And it is like Christmas morning. The project fairs are so exciting, and at so many other schools, it's on a stage. So there's always that public audience there. And the students then showcase what they know. They're so deeply invested in their work. When they have an opportunity to present, then I think they are a lot more likely to critique their own work. As an English teacher by trade, oftentimes students think their first draft is their final draft. But when they have to present it, they don't have that same mindset. They really have that growth mindset. So they critique their work along the way. And then we always open up the opportunity for students to provide feedback at the exhibition of learning and allow outside people to provide feedback. Oftentimes that's just a really big celebration of how much they've learned and grown every single quarter.
Opal, there is so much learning opportunity here for teachers, isn't there?
Yeah.
These are amazing practices for change. They're really powerful levers. And you add student-led conferences to this, and this can really put deeper learning into high drive. But that's also enough to make anybody in this business anxious. So let's look at how we can empower teachers, the last of what we're going to do here today. If I can get my screen to advance here, hold on just a minute. There we go. All right. So how are teachers going to be ready and confident, even excited about this? We want to look at tracking data and professional learning. And we're gonna fly through this so we have lots of time for questions. But I want you to look at this classroom and what's going on. This is a standards-based classroom. There are two teachers, one on each side. You see they're off on the side, guides on the side, and facilitating learning. This group up front is busy working on managing pond quality. They've been doing it all year. And this group is working on reducing waste in the cafeteria. All of the groups are engaged in really meaningful projects to them, and they're gathering data, they're analyzing data, and they're trying to figure out how to best represent that data. Their teachers are going to be analyzing how well they are learning the standards in regard to data use. And so the teachers are the ones that have a problem here. The kids are deeply engaged and working well. Here's a teacher from Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, and all of the data of his kids working on standards is represented here. It's been nicely personalized, 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper taped to a whiteboard. And this guy is my hero, really, and especially the fact that he persisted in doing this for so long, but he actually came to really appreciate doing it this way. So what you're looking at here is Foundry's Deeper Learning Management Platform. There are many platforms for managing learning, as you know, and you'll want to choose one that fits your model. Today we're going to look at screenshots from Foundry. So Foundry was designed by teachers for teachers doing PBL and for students doing PBL so that they could work with full agency. And so what you see here is a particular student, Aaliyah, working on her graduation plan and what she's completed around the standards toward her graduation and what she has remaining to do and what's in progress. It's been organized around subjects And this allows for deep interdisciplinary work to go on so that it can be sorted, it can be put out into interdisciplinary projects, but then drawn back into buckets of subjects to allow for tracking. Opal, have you got a comment about this briefly?
Yeah, I think the important thing to note is that students also see their own page. So this is a student maybe looking at their page. And the amazing thing that I saw in using a tool like this is that students really take ownership of their learning, and you're going to notice it in the language that they use. Instead of students saying, why did you give me an A? They really become advocates in saying, oh, I want to earn credit towards whatever their areas of need are. And they start to design and develop projects or ideas on how to meet their goals. So it really shifts and leads to a culture change in your building.
Mm-hmm. Yep, thanks. The ability to be able to see down into the target level and then to see the learning experience has been planned, in this case, in Foundry with teachers or students planning or groups of people planning, and the proficiency level, or to see this across groups provides important pictures of where students are, what needs to be done next, and really leads to the ability to do interdisciplinary learning. Workflow is also managed in a good platform for deeper learning. In this case, you're looking at learning logs across all different kinds of uses like projects and independent reading and research, and the ability to click into them and see the reflection of students, to provide additional materials to students related to their reflections, or to put in comments along the way of the work of students reflecting. So deeper learning management platforms do this kind of workflow management. But at their heart, they're deeply relational, and they provide the opportunity for both students and teachers to have their hands on what's really going on across the breadth of the work, whether it's credits or targets or skills for that matter, 21st century habits of mind and community being tracked and the growth toward them, or looking at the workflow. And providing the materials that students need and the commentary that's there, or collecting the evidence of the work along the way. So Opal, we have just a few minutes to talk about professional learning, and maybe you could just take us on a 1-minute tour of what that looks like in your work at MPS.
Yeah, and as a curriculum and instruction coach, this is my job. It's really ongoing. But the biggest PD that we've done that's been most effective is teachers experiencing the strategies as learners themselves. So they learn how to do project-based learning by participating as a student through a project, collaborating on designing. So teachers having the time to work together in designing projects through PLC or PD, or even through your scheduling when you can allow them to have time to collaborate. Also visiting other sites, other teachers, and collaborating with those people, because I can explain project-based learning to a science teacher, but when a science teacher connects with another science teacher who's doing the work, that is so much more meaningful. And then they get these really wonderful ideas and begin to collaborate across schools and as well as districts. And then deeply knowing your standards and spending time with your standards, and you can do that through a PLC model too, and developing those protocols for what makes good work in a project-based learning setting or any other deeper learning environment.
Yeah. Thanks so much. That's the same kind of picture that we've drawn here as I showed all of you before at Foundry. And so, what is the particular work to move from your vision to deeper learning? What are the areas you need to dive into next? This is our Professional Learning Academy, and as Opal just said, we use deeper learning to work with teachers in deeper learning. We think that's what you should do as well. So how do teachers actually engage in their own projects embedded in their own classrooms to learn how to do this work? It takes away the fear for doing it with their students. So that's what we have for you today. These are some of the things we're going to send to you in the form of an annotated bibliography. You'll receive that along with a recording of today's webinar. And let's jump in now to our Q&A.
Thanks, Camille. Just before we start our Q&A, if you'd like to have a demo of the Foundry solution, visit our website at projectfoundry.com to request a demo. Also, very important, we'll be sending out a brief survey after the webinar, and we'd really appreciate your feedback. Okay, we have 3 questions. Our first question is, what problems do you most often see in a school that is just starting to implement deeper learning?
Well, from my side of things, this is Camille. I think there's this tension about how do we know, from many of the schools, how do we know what we want students to learn? And then there's how are we going to help them learn it? Like, what's the team going to do to come together to do that? So many of the schools that come to us first trip into this whole standards-based, competency-based that is at the heart of interdisciplinary inquiry-based learning. And so taking the work of building a team that wants to think and talk about that and kind of hammer out the hard work of getting agreement around this is really important. Even if there's someone at a district office or a team at the district office doing that, then how does that move out to teachers to be understood? So I think you mentioned this as well, Opal, but I think this whole work of bringing all of the stakeholders, the internal stakeholders together around this is a really important first challenge in a lot of districts. What would you say, Opal?
Yeah, I see a lot of people know what they want to do. They want to do project-based learning or whatever it is, but they don't really know how to get started. I think that's the biggest challenge. And then also teachers, feeling a lack of creativity or that everything is new and I have to learn how to teach all over again. So I do think really putting those things in place, those structures in place first helps drive it. And then having teachers visit other teachers really helps too. And then they can see the structures that other schools have done and pick and choose what they think is going to work for them.
And what you make me think of too is that this, what teachers already do doesn't go away.
No.
Right?
No.
It doesn't go away. Teachers still teach lessons. Teachers, still have great opportunities to work with kids in small groups and, build skills. All of that's still there. But then there are these other methodologies. So it doesn't all have to be given up.
Yeah.
So it's an addition.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Our second question is, we are just starting to plan our transformation to deeper learning and are getting a lot of teacher resistance. Do you have any tips to help overcome it?
Well, I keep saying it, but they have to see it to believe it. And then the other thing is really work on developing a growth mindset in your building, because teachers have a growth mindset for themselves, will have a growth mindset for their students. So that would be the 2 key things that I would say. See it to believe it and really work on developing a growth mindset language.
Mm-hmm. And I would add that I think many teachers express fear of what's going to happen in their classroom. Will they lose control of their classroom as they pass from sage on the stage to guide on the side? Will this no longer work, that students are going to attend to what's supposed to be done and make progress forward and have it look like the teacher's in charge? So I think helping teachers recognize that raising student engagement raises their motivation, and they, as you said, Opal, they put their cell phones away. Right? Now that may not be happening in the classroom, but this whole idea of actually attending to what's going on there. Is there really an engaging question on the table? Is there something important to be done? Is there actually something that's going to be created that matters to other people? This engages students at a level that means there doesn't need to be the same kind of external structure for control. Students begin to put their own control mechanisms in place. They begin to use their own spine to do that instead of requiring teachers to do that. So teachers begin to relax, and that's why seeing it in action helps people, because they recognize, it's not a free-for-all.
Yeah, I'd like to add one more thing too that I've been thinking about a lot is I think that teacher resistance is important. Listening to their questions and because those questions mean that there's stuff that needs to be ironed out too. So I think there does need to be a platform for teachers to express concerns and work together towards those solutions.
Great. And now our final question. What is the best way to get parents on board?
I think it's in a similar way to the teachers. Parents need to see it and experience it. Also, getting parents to an exhibition is the best. I mean, I think it's really essential because when they see how transformative this is with their students, then there's a greater buy-in and support from the parents. And parents are your best resource. If parents could be involved in some of the projects that you're developing, they, are more invested as well along the way.
And I think using probably the most important quality that parents bring to your advantage, and that is that there's nobody that cares as much about their students' success than parents. And they want what's best for their children. They want what will make their children satisfied, happy at school, successful in the long run, the ability to go to college, to persist and be ready for work. Parents want those things. So helping parents to understand the research. But I think the most important thing is to help parents understand how they learn themselves.
Yeah.
And that they know that this kind of experiential relevant work is when they really get to attend to things, when they pay attention, and when they engage, and when they stop, just learning it because you got to learn it, instead of actually learning it because, well, it just makes sense. You need it. You want it. And they know that from their own life experiences. They may know it from their own school experiences, which weren't strong, or they may know it from having had wonderful school experiences and arriving at work and not being really ready for work, which happens. The statistics on STEM graduates is that 80% of them say they weren't ready for work. That's astonishing in STEM, isn't it? We would think there, of all places, that students would be ready. But how are we going to get really focused on what do students need to know, and how are we going to help them choose to learn it? And this work has proven to me that it's really by doing work that's relevant to students and significant for their futures. So the kind of guidance that helps them choose significant things, but relevant. And once parents see this, they are the biggest allies that schools can have. So I think you're right, very much so. These exhibitions of learning with really authentic audiences, and those authentic audiences, in my mind, I don't know if you're doing this in Minneapolis, but they really include mentors and experts from projects and from businesses. And when students can appear as experts in front of real world experts, when they can hold their own and have conversations, it's almost like magic in converting parents over to this approach. Are you doing some of that in Minneapolis with people from business and deep expertise talking with kids about their work, Opal?
Yeah, absolutely. And then we even talk to the students about how these are opportunities to network, because they are potential employers or places that they can have internships at. And you really bring out a great point about it being like the world of work. And that's an important part to tell parents and those stakeholders too, is that in the world of work, it looks so different than the world of school. And so we're really making that match. And so kids are doing school like you would in the real world.
Well, thank you.
It's exciting work.
It's exciting. It's important work. We're glad to have so many people on the journey with us.
Absolutely. And thank you, Camille and Opal, for sharing your expertise today. And that about wraps it up for us. Watch your email for the deeper learning resources that we promised you during the webinar, and the link for the recorded webinar for you to share with other people in your organization who you want to get on board. So thank you all very much.
Bye-bye.